Mr. McNally, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing very good. Alexandra, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. And how was everyone's Christmas?
Well, mine was fine. I get a bit bored during the holiday period. I don't mind Christmas and New Year. It's what they call the Meroneum in between, that lost week. I I just find it a bit boring, really. I want to get back to work.
Understood. Alexandra, what about you?
It was awesome. It was great to be with family again. It's my favorite time of the year. We're Italian, so we make this bread called scarpel, and it's like my favorite thing ever. So ate a bunch of that, and yeah, it was nice.
Nice. Now, Mr. McNally, there is a rumor going around on the internet about a development of Pirates of the Caribbean 6. Is that true or false?
Well, I think it's false. I have unfortunately grown some mutton chops for a job I'm doing, and it sparked some rumors in itself. But the way I understand it, there have been projects mooted and in development. It seems unlikely to me that the rift between Disney and Johnny would be easily healed. But who knows what can happen? I've heard rumors that there is a script flying around. It certainly hasn't landed through my door or on my email. But as soon as I know anything, I will go outside in the front door and I shall shout it down the street and hope it gets around.
Got it. And speaking of Pirates of the Caribbean, we actually have a friend that is here on my computer. It's There he is, Josh McGibbs.
Lego, yes, there
Yeah.
he is. I do
And
have one of those actually.
you do?
Yeah.
Like, is it just the minifigure or is it like a whole set?
No, just somebody gave me a minifigure at a convention, and I was unaware that I existed in the Lego world, but it was nice to see it. Still waiting for a Funko Pop to come out about me, but
Yes. Yes,
it
definitely.
doesn't seem to happen.
I have the Black Pearl still built from when I was 13. It was a gift from my
Oh,
it was a Christmas gift from my parents, and it's still built. It's actually sitting here on my desk.
wow, wonderful.
Yeah. And what was your inspiration for becoming an actor?
Well, I guess as long as I can remember, I wanted to be one. I think it came from uh, when I was a young lad, the work that my dad did. They had a works outing for the children every year, and that was a party up till the age of 9. And then after 9, it would be going to a pantomime, which is a very specific sort of English Christmas show. And I sort of fell in love with the smell and the look of theatre and thought it'd be really great to be up there with them. And I was lucky enough that when I was 16, I wanted to go to what's called the National Youth Theatre, but my parents couldn't afford to send me to London and put me up. But luckily that year, my hometown of Birmingham, in the middle of England, they started a Birmingham Youth Theatre, which I went to, and from there was spotted by someone at the local repertory theatre and did a year in rep, and they kept me on until I went to drama school. So it's been a pretty constant thing for me for the last 51 years.
Mhm. Alexandra, what inspired you to become an artist?
I guess I feel kind of similarly. I just have always been drawn towards creating. I was always the kid growing up that would have a sketchbook with me and pencils, and just be doodling, getting in trouble for doodling during class and things like that. So it kind of was just a natural thing. I always knew that was what I was going to do from a young age.
Nice. And Mr.
Nice.
McNally, what advice would you pass on to people that want to go into the acting business?
Well, I do this all the time because I like to teach now as well and direct short films with students. And it's quite difficult for me to give personal advice because the profession is such a different one from the one I entered. I would just say persistence is the best thing, and also don't sit around waiting for the phone to ring. You know, we all have phones and iPads now, and we have friends who like to create. So write and create stuff and get your own practice. The sort of practice I could get from the streams of not very good television that used to fill the evenings in the 70s on on British television. So I think it's really do it. You
Nice.
know.
And
Mm.
when you said teach, do you teach like college classes or children's classes?
No, I teach occasional classes with a friend of mine who has a group called Bubble and Squeak Theatre Company here in London, and then also I go and direct the final films for a film school, a year-long film school called Real Scene. And I have been, I suppose I started teaching about 10 years ago, and I absolutely love it. And I love the fact they just give me all this equipment and I can go and make a 10-minute film about anything I want with a bunch of very young, enthusiastic people.
I took a film class at Columbus College of Art and Design, and we did for our final projects, we had to do documentaries, and I did a documentary that actually unexpectedly won 2 awards at 2 festivals.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well
Yeah.
done.
I'll I'll send you a link. And it's
Mm.
funny because Alexandra and I both went to the same school, but we didn't meet until later on. Now, Alexandra, what is the advice that you would give to others?
I guess I'm still kind of trying to figure things out myself. So I'm trying to make this transition right now of doing just full-time art and not, kind of like jumping around different jobs just to pay rent and stuff like that. So I guess persistence was a good word. I think in any art field, you have to just really, really want it. You have to go ask the questions, you have to make the emails, you have to really put yourself out there. Yeah, I liked the use of the word persistence. I would say that.
Now, my mother has a question, and she wants to know, Miss Millie, we're going to start with you first, and she wants to know if you could watch one movie for the rest of your life. I mean, you don't have to watch it every day, but like, let's say you had to watch one movie for the rest of your life. What would that movie be?
Well, it's a tough one. I guess I would pick my favorite movie of all time, a movie that I can always find things in a genre that I love, and it would be 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Great movie.
I never tire of that film. If I could come across a slightly more generous taskmaster than yourself, then I would say I would like to watch the American independent movies of the 70s and maybe pick about 5 of them. Maybe, Godfather, Goodfellas, Scarecrow, that sort of thing.
Great movies. Alexandra, what about you?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me because I just love so many, but I would maybe pick something from my childhood that's very comforting. Maybe like even just a Harry Potter movie or Narnia, something like that, that I know that if I put it on, I'll feel good. Probably something like that, yeah.
I do the same as well. I would actually do Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
Now, Mr. McNally, did you get offered to be in Harry Potter? Did anyone pitch you the idea to be in Harry Potter?
Never got a phone call. Not a
Really?
one. Yeah, not a one. No. No, I missed the boat on Harry Potter. I have to say, it would be nice to have been in one of those films, but uh, sort of fantasy and magic isn't really my wheelhouse. I'm
Understood.
more of a classic hard science fiction. Particularly from the golden era. Isaac Asimov, who, as you can see, I'm attempting to look like at the moment. Ray Bradbury, Arthur C. Clarke, and in fact, I've written a novel in that vein. Called Sons of Sol, if anybody's interested in reading it, and it's very much an homage to the golden era of science fiction.
Nice. And we have 2 fan questions.
Mhm.
And the first fan question is, what are you currently filming in 2024?
Well, at the moment, I'm filming a BBC television series called Miss Austen, which is really about Jane Austen's sister, and there's a big mystery as to why Cassandra Austen um, destroyed all of her correspondence with Jane, and it's a series that sort of investigates why that might have happened, and I play their father.
Nice. And the second question is there any news about Apartment 7A?
Not at the moment. I know I went back earlier last year to do some reshoots, but then, of course, the strike happened, which seriously delayed post-production. And as it is a studio picture, it's Paramount. Nobody was allowed to work on it. So I figure it's just going to have quite a long gestation period. But I would imagine it would open in the fall of this year.
Understood. And speaking of Paramount, there there was a movie that came out last year called Scream 6. It was a sequel to the past Scream movies.
Yeah.
One of the actresses that was in 5 and 6, I actually made connections with last year. She
Mm.
was fired from the production because there was supposed to be a number 7, but she was fired from number 7 due to political controversy. Her name is Melissa Barerra.
Oh.
What was your reaction when you heard the news?
Well, my reaction now that I've just heard the news, I didn't know about that story. What was the particulars of the political um,
So
ramifications?
it wasn't like, I mean, it wasn't bad or anything. It wasn't like,
No.
I mean, it wasn't against anything. So there is a war going on in Israel. There's the
Yes,
terrorist war going on in Israel, and she was posting political opinions all over her Instagram, and they
I
weren't
see.
like bad or anything. They were good. Like she was saying how she was basically giving her side story, saying like this needs to end. This is not appropriate. This is
Right.
hurtful to others. Like she was giving her side of the story, but of course, when it comes to studios, like whatever political opinion you support, whether if it's
Yes.
Democrat or
Do you know, I personally have a rule about that, and I feel sorry for that woman because I'm sure she was making her comments in the most
Mhm.
humanitarian and positive way. I think it's easier for my generation. I social media for me is a way of promoting stuff, and I do make political comments at times, usually a bit later on at night. But I think it's probably best for those of us in the entertainment industry to talk about the things we believe in with our friends and with people who who we can have a constructive dialogue with. The moment you throw something out onto social media, you're opening yourself up to trolls and to people wanting to cancel you, and you're not really changing
yeah.
anybody's mind about anything. That's the problem. It's not a constructive place to have dialogue. So I would say to my students and to everyone, just avoid it. If you want to talk about these things, go to your favorite bar with your friends and talk it out there.
Well done, well done. And we are coming down to the end of the interview. What is your favorite retro product?
Retro product.
Retro product.
My favorite retro products are anything that's a game in a box.
Good one. Yes.
So anything that's a game in a box, I can play. And funnily enough, the girls who are playing my daughters in the Miss Austin show that I'm doing are very keen on their off time to do jigsaw puzzles. So I bought them a big jigsaw puzzle and a big jigsaw mat that can close it up. So in between moving to locations, it doesn't fall apart. So that's a nice thing. And I'm a particular fan of Monopoly.
That's a great game.
Yeah.
Uh, I haven't played Monopoly in a while. It gets in my family it gets really intense. I mean, not saying it's bad. I
Oh,
mean,
don't
it's a
never
fun
play
game.
it with family members. It's a very, very bad idea. In that case, go and get the Chicago Monopoly.
Well, it's a very politically active game, so that's partly why.
Yeah. Did you know that the game originally had two sides, and the first side was a socialist anti-capitalist side and a capitalist side, but nobody
Really?
wanted to play the socialist version. They wanted to win all the money. I only found that out recently. It was really interesting.
I thank you for telling me that. I'll have to
Mm.
look into it.
Look it up. Look it up. It's a really interesting story.
I will. Alexandra, what was your favorite retro product?
Ooh. Does this count as retro? Like the phones that have cords, like
Yeah,
cord.
those count.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
darn
love.
retro.
I had one as a kid that was like fuzzy and pink, and I just loved being able to pick it up and and twist the cord in your finger and stuff. So I would say
Yes.
those are pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely bringing back the 1980s a little bit.
Yeah.
Or should I say 70s or 60s?
Probably the 70s, yeah. Actually, you've given me a great idea. I think I might start manufacturing a little curly cord that you can stick into your iPhone so that you can twirl it while you're speaking to people. It's a very good idea.
Here's a good one for fun, since this is a retro show. Imagine if it was like a modern day 1980s, which I mean, in some ways we kind of think about it, we kind of do live in a modern day 1980s because like even music, like fans will take like music and make like an 80s version out of music, like like Dua Lipa songs. They would take a Dua Lipa song and make an 80s version of it. Like imagine if a smartphone like this is a Google Pixel, but it was an arcade console, like a mini arcade console, and you just be like half flip phone and half arcade console, but it would still have like a touch screen and a keyboard.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I've noticed over the second half of my life, when I was growing up in the 70s, you know, we all wore high street fashion. We listened to the top 10. But in a way, because fashion has become so weird and music has become so very singular, I find that the generation just below me started to get into music of all ages. They start to wear whatever fashion they want. And maybe we should do that with things like technology. You know, we should not be stuck to just this little flat screen. I like that idea.
I'm with you on that. My last guest on the show said that they wish they could live in the 1980s before technology. Well, I mean, like modern day technology was invented. Like
yes. Like certainly looking back, I can't believe the seismic shift that has happened to people, and I you know I do read from time to time that this had quite a negative effect on people's mental health, and I can really see that as being true, and I get terribly perturbed when I go to restaurants and see children glued to their little screen when they used to be out, you know, maybe riding the penny arcade or, you know, playing with each other, or there were playpen areas and stuff. So I worry about that a little bit for the, you know, the real new upcoming generation of kids.
I'm definitely with you on that. I because like what I worry the most with, I mean, because when you turn on the TV and you hear the news and you hear like, oh, something terrible has happened in a current location, like what I fear the most is that like kids are getting behavior from someone they've been living with or been inspired by or been brainwashed by. I mean, even adults for that matter could get brainwashed by technology as well. But one of the things that my nana is from the UK. She grew up in London during World War II. She was saying something about, with her opinion, why there's even more behaviors because when the pandemic happened and a lot of people were home a lot, and now that things are starting opening and going back out, like some folks have forgotten how to behave in public, which is
yes, I would say that's true, and I think for children, you know, before their teens, having those 3 years robbed of them of social interaction, I think it might in some way slow down their social skills and development. And so if I was a parent of very young kids now, I would make sure that I was really trying to make up for that now.
Yeah.
But Yunana's got a point. Yeah.
Alexandra, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have any kids. So it's a little bit more difficult. I work with kids. I'm a preschool teacher. But yeah, it is a little bit interesting, kind of seeing how that's all changed. I know at least for myself, like during COVID, being in school, it was really difficult and stuff. So I can't imagine, and I was in college, so I can't imagine being in elementary school or middle school, high school, you know, trying to adjust to that new way of living and then having to go back like nothing changed. I bet it was very shocking, and I bet it's going to be interesting to see how these kids kind of progress later on.
Yeah. There was something I was going to say, but I completely forgot what it was. It's going to come back later and I'm going to be like, shoot, why did I not say that?
Right. Up on something that Alexandra was saying there about it's interesting that the responsibility that teachers have to take the kids back in and try to help them with their, so as well as the parents, the teachers, you know, have a big part in that, I think, which is why they should be paid well.
Yes. Definitely with you on that. Oh, now I remember. Because I mean, like what Alexandra was saying about being in school during the pandemic, and now that the pandemic's over and things are slightly going to get back to a sort of new normal. I remember during my first 2 years of college, it was mainly online for the first 2 years, and then the third year it was the combination of both in person and online, and then my senior year, it was fully in person. And I remember because I was also doing freelance projects at the time. I was doing fun little short films, and some of them were extra school projects, and they were supposed to be in person, but sadly they had to get canceled because COVID hit and the COVID medicine didn't exist yet, and so we had to make an animation version. And I remember we had to do that. We had to zoom in and zoom out, not nonstop, and yeah.
Very frustrating. I did a lot of readings and things to keep busy online. Sadly, there's still a hangover. I think people have said, why do we need an office anymore? So people are trying to conduct interviews on Zoom or do auditions on Zoom, and I try not to get involved with that. I think there's nothing like being in a room, particularly for young actors, and getting feedback on what they do and having another go at it.
I see.
But yeah, so I'm not keen. I mean, obviously, it's opened up a world like this. That when we're, there's an ocean between us, we can speak instantaneously, and that's great. But I think it should be, kept solely for podcasts and interviews.
Definitely with you on
for
that.
fun.
Yes. Well, Mr. McNally and Alexandra, thank you again for joining today's episode. It was great to meet you both.
All right, thank you, and nice to meet you, Alexandra, as well.